Hello, it is March 16th, 2024. I'm Alan Zundell, welcoming you to Political Dharma. I have news for you this week. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has chosen a vice presidential running mate. The American Values 2024 super PAC that's supporting Kennedy has stopped gathering signatures for him. And No Labels, the pseudo party, has finally set up a presidential nomination process. The other independent presidential candidate, Cornel West, has gotten on the ballot in the state of Utah. And Nick Brana of the People's Party has popped up in the Kennedy campaign. For regular followers of the show, I also have some news for you about future episodes at the end of this show, so stick around until then so I can tell you about it. But before getting into all that, I have a brief update on the major party presidential candidates. On Tuesday, 4 states held primaries, and both Donald Trump and Joe Biden won enough delegates to guarantee them the presidential nominations of their respective parties. The Republican convention is set for July in Milwaukee, and the Democratic convention is set for August in Chicago. At this point, the big unknown is who the minor party candidates will be and how many states will have the minor party and independent candidates on their ballots. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the most prominent of these alternative candidates, had some news this week about a vice presidential running mate. On Tuesday, the New York Times reported that former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura and New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers were at the top of Kennedy's list for potential vice presidential choices. Kennedy also reportedly talked with Senator Rand Paul, former presidential candidate Andrew Yang, and former Congressperson Tulsi Gabbard about the position, but they declined the opportunity. It also said Kennedy was considering other potential candidates. One of those is the guy on the Dirty Job show, Mike Rowe. Yesterday, NBC News reported on Rowe's interview with Kennedy. Rowe said he and Kennedy discussed their policy views, and Kennedy made clear he wasn't looking for just a yes man. The article also stated that an insider had confirmed that Kennedy has offered the position of vice president to someone who accepted it. On Wednesday, the Kennedy campaign said he would announce his pick on Tuesday, March 26 at 11 a.m. Pacific time in Oakland, California. That's a little more than a week from now, so presumably they're delaying the announcement to have time to drum up more interest and media attention before the event. Even though major party presidential nominees don't usually announce their vice presidential pick until their summer conventions, independent presidential candidates have this incentive to do that more quickly. The Kennedy campaign has identified 23 states in which he is required to list a vice presidential candidate in his application to be on their ballot in the November general election. That's almost half the states, which, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, are colored light blue on the map you see on your screen. The listed vice presidential candidate can be a stand-in until the actual nominee is chosen, but if you're planning to choose a vice presidential nominee who is going to draw voters to your ticket, then you would like to have that person's name on the actual ballot. Kennedy has brought a lawsuit against the state of Idaho regarding this and other topics. The lawsuit succeeded in getting Idaho to move its signature petition deadline for getting on the ballot. Ballot Access News reported that on Tuesday, the Idaho governor signed a bill to move the date from March 15th to August 1st. The Kennedy lawsuit also challenged Idaho's requirement to name a vice presidential candidate, but to the best of my knowledge, this issue hasn't been resolved. It seems to have been dropped during the informal status conference with the judge, in which Idaho agreed to move its deadline for petitioning. So far, the Kennedy campaign has succeeded in getting him sufficient signatures to be on the ballot in 4 states: Utah, New Hampshire, Nevada, and with his We the People Party in Hawaii. Meanwhile, American Values 2024, the super PAC independently supporting his campaign, has gathered enough signatures to put him on the ballot in another 4 states: Georgia, Arizona, South Carolina, and this week in Michigan as well. However, as I reported in a previous episode, early last month, the Democratic National Committee filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission against AV24, accusing it of illegally coordinating its work with the Kennedy campaign. They also complained that by gathering signatures to get Kennedy on the ballot, they were making an in-kind donation to the Kennedy campaign, which would make them subject to campaign donation limitations. The FEC is composed of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans without any political independence. An adverse ruling could stop AV24 from collecting signatures to get Kennedy on the ballot and subject the PAC to hefty fines. A week after the DNC complaint was filed, a Democratic group called Third Way wrote to the Secretaries of State in Georgia, Arizona, and Michigan, urging them not to accept signatures from AV24. Third Way hired the high-power elections law firm Elias Law Group to present their case. AV24 and the Kennedy campaign avoided overtly coordinating their campaigns by simply listing their activities on their websites where anyone could see them. That way, if AV24 was collecting signatures in certain states, the Kennedy campaign could then notice that and decide to collect signatures in different states. However, it seems that AV24 has had second thoughts about this strategy. On Monday, AV24 tweeted on X that it will not gather signatures in any more states as the Kennedy campaign is moving forward on its own to get on the ballot in all 50 states. It added that it will continue to fight the DNC and the RNC, that is the Republican National Committee's, interference with the voters' right to have independent candidates on the ballot. This decision will slow down progress in getting Kennedy on the ballot in all the states. The combination of the DNC and Third Way is no coincidence. As I reported previously, the Democratic National Committee and the Biden campaign are actively and intentionally working to try to keep independent and minor party candidates off the ballots in as many places as they can and to turn voters against them. This week, NBC News reported that the DNC is building a special team to counter the campaigns of independent and minor party candidates. They hired a number of veteran Democratic electoral operatives to run a communication strategy painting Kennedy as a tool of the Trump campaign to take away votes from Biden. They also intend to use opposition research to smear alternative candidates and to file legal challenges to keep them off the ballot. NBC also reported that a larger coalition of Democratic and anti-Trump Republican groups was raising money to use against alternative presidential candidates. The groups include Third Way, the opposition research group American Bridge, the super PAC Citizens to Save Our Republic, the anti-Trump Lincoln Project, and Move On, which will target young and progressive voters. One of their main targets, in addition to Kennedy, has been the pseudo-party No Labels. I call it a pseudo-party because it's not organized as a political party in order to hide its campaign donors, but it is working to try to actually form political parties called No Labels in the various states and to help them get on the ballot. In a January 11th letter to the U.S. Department of Justice, No Labels detailed the many actions being taken by outside groups to interfere with their activities. This campaign against them seems to have hindered their plans, as they are now saying they intend to get on the ballot in the majority of states rather than all the states. No Labels has also been slow to set up a process to choose their presidential and vice presidential nominees. They are trying to recruit both a Republican and a Democrat to serve in one or the other of those roles in order to represent what they call the political center. This Thursday, No Labels said it had formed a committee to recommend specific candidates, after which delegates from the states will be asked to approve the recommendation. They still hope to complete the process and name their candidates by the end of this month. A number of possible candidates already have denied any interest in running with No Labels. By my count, No Labels so far has qualified for ballot access in only 17 states. This includes Ohio, where they turned in their signatures a year ago, And the Secretary of State says they will finish checking the validity of the signatures by July of this year. I guess if you want to be careful, you have to do things slowly. The independent presidential candidate whose name is not Kennedy also had news this week. On Tuesday, Cornel West announced that he had obtained enough signatures to put him on the ballot in Utah. West had already secured ballot access in 3 other states, Alaska, Oregon, and South Carolina. Last week, I made a mistake when I said that West was on the ballot in North Carolina. I meant to say South Carolina, so forgive that mistake, please. Speaking of RFK, Cornel West, and ballot access, I made a discovery when I was looking at a video called How to Get RFK Jr. on the Ballot, which I found on the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. YouTube channel. Check out who pops up in these short clips from that longer video.
In about 10 minutes, we'll do the announcement.
Are you all ready to get Robert F. Kennedy Jr. elected president?
We have to get about 1 million signatures to get Bobby on the ballot. We have to collect these signatures state by state. Those signatures, each of them is a piece of getting Bobby on the ballot and achieving the change that he represents. And you will always carry that piece of having made this campaign a success and all of the change that comes from it in your heart.
As identified in the video, the ballot access chair for the Kennedy campaign is Nick Brana. Brana is the former national director of the Movement for a People's Party. He founded the party in 2017 with the intent of drafting Bernie Sanders for a third-party run for the presidency in 2020. After 6 years in which the party stagnated and Brana faced accusations of sexual harassment and mismanagement, last year he drafted Cornel West into running for president. As you may remember, West quickly had second thoughts and left the People's Party for the Green Party, and then had third thoughts and decided to run as an independent. The People's Party's website is still up, but it hasn't posted any news since the end of last year. In an article posted in September, the party said it had run a poll indicating that voters would support RFK running as an independent. Its most recent article, posted on December 28th, said that the party had connected with the Kennedy campaign at the 2023 Independent Voters Convention in Austin, Texas, and had strongly encouraged him to run as an independent. They also encouraged Kennedy to make the formation of a new party, quote, a cornerstone of his campaign, end quote. I don't know who wrote those articles, but I assume it was Brana. And when the article refers to the party taking certain actions, I assume that that's Brana taking those actions in the name of the party. It seems he pivoted from the loss of Cornel West as a presidential candidate into trying to recruit Kennedy as a candidate for his party, but when that didn't quite work out, he decided to join the Kennedy campaign as a ballot access staff person. It also seems that he's pivoted from complaining about West running as an independent to helping Kennedy run as an independent. His actions might look opportunistic, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that, as he said all along, what he's trying to do is find a viable presidential candidate outside the two-party system that he thinks would make a good president. And this year, I guess he's chosen Kennedy as that candidate. I wish him well in his new role. Well, that's it for this week. I turn my page, make sure that's it for this week. Next week, I'm going to be scheduled for surgery on the joint of my right thumb, which means that for at least a couple of weeks, I'm going to be hindered in trying to use that hand. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do what I do for this video, which is a lot of snipping of various news articles and making graphics and shooting the video and editing it and all that. So I think I'm going to try to do just an audio version of the show, maybe a shorter version, see how far I can get. And if I'm not even able to manage that for a couple of weeks, at least I'll post a short audio announcement telling you how I'm doing and what's going on. So please stick with me through these coming weeks as I try to recover my ability to produce a full video episode. Your well wishes, prayers, and good vibes are all appreciated. I also appreciate if you like the show when you hit that like, thumbs up indication, and when you share it with other people, when you leave comments, which I read in their entirety, and often I respond to when it seems like it draws forth a response from me. And if you want to help the channel financially, you can find a secure PayPal link at the end of the program description for this episode. Anything else? Don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss future shows. And thanks for bearing with me in the coming weeks if I'm not able to produce what I usually produce. That's it. So thanks a lot for watching. And you probably won't see me next week, but I hope you tune in and give me some feedback. All right? Thanks. Bye.
With ease, I see the chains are breaking. We gained our focus, the moves we're making will prove to determine our self-worth as a passenger on this vehicle Earth.